You wrote, I titled this stream, by the way, is Brock Purdy the 49ers best quarterback since Steve Young? And, it's like, it's that seems like the unthinkable, right? They had Colin Kaepernick and they have Jimmy Garoppolo, and they've been to a couple Super Bowls, one with Jimmy, one with Colin. Then, of course, in between there was Jeff Garcia.
Yeah,
Jeff Garcia was a Pro Bowler, and I love Jeff Garcia. He's a great guy. I scouted him in the Canadian League, but I really believe that Brock has potential to be better than all of them. Garcia, it was unique in that he was so he played with that third down urgency that Young played his entire career with. Garcia played with that as well, which is to me what separates those two guys from a lot of quarterbacks. But I still think when you look at the processing, the accuracy, the timing, the kinds of plays that Brock has made in a short amount of time, I do believe that Brock is the best quarterback the Niners have had since Young. Where do you weigh in on that, Dave? Because there are people that would say, "Hey, look, pump the brakes." We thought Kaepernick was super special, and it didn't work out. We thought, Garoppolo was super special. He regressed. You know, I think there's a lot of Niner fans, Dave, kind of waiting for Brock's regression. I'm not. I'm not in that camp. I feel like we've seen the good and the bad from Brock in the first 17 games of his pro career. But where do you sit with Brock?
all you can do is judge based on the body of work so far. And he has a full season of work now, 17 games. If you count the Miami game where he came in the first quarter as a start and you toss out the Philadelphia game, he went 4 for 4 there. So it hurts his numbers to toss them out. But I don't think it's good for analysis because he tore his UCL just a few throws in. So anyway, if you look at that sample, 17 games, full season, it's indisputable. It's been the best full season sample from a 49ers quarterback since Steve Young in the 1990s. Brock Purdy has a 110 rating over that time. That's also tops in the NFL for both 2022 and 2023. He's got the highest QBR, which is more sophisticated than quarterback rating. He leads in adjusted net yards per attempt, yards per attempt. I mean, whichever way you want to slice it up, he's at the top of all the league charts right now. And he's also doing it behind an offensive line that's ranked number 22. We know that this offensive line is not flawless. He played well even when Trent Williams was out, too. Williams was hurt against Cleveland, and Brock Purdy still led the 49ers into scoring range when Jake Moody missed a field goal against the league's best defense. That was, on the aggregate, though, Purdy's only bad game this year, the game against the Browns. That was a negative efficiency game. But he was still good against Minnesota, and he was still good against Cincinnati. In fact, you can argue that he was the one player that was most responsible for keeping the 49ers in those games, despite the fact that their defense was playing so poorly. He just hasn't been explosively good without Trent Williams, Deebo Samuel, or Christian McCaffrey. And you could say that about any quarterback in NFL history, right? If any quarterback in NFL history is playing on a team with Trent, Deebo, and Christian, and all of a sudden Trent, Deebo, and Christian were compromised by injury, that quarterback's numbers would regress, not just Brock Purdy's. So the fact that Purdy's been good in all the games except for the game against the defense that some people are saying is historically good, some of the numbers indicate that Cleveland's defense might be historically good. The fact that that's happened, you have to give him his flowers at this point. Now, whether or not he regresses moving forward, I don't know. I think that's why we watch the NFL on a week-in, week-out basis, to see who's going to continue performing, to see who can counter-adjust to the league's adjustments. I think that the main thing to realize right now is that Brock Purdy has an excellent physical skill set. People were extremely wrong about his physical skill set. He is not limited physically. His burst is faster than almost any other quarterback in the league. We've already talked about his 10-yard split. So he can get out of the pocket. He can evade short area pressure very effectively. And time again, we've seen him make the NFL throws that need to be made. And I'll just leave it with the one against Jacksonville to George Kittle. The pocket is collapsing on him. And Purdy somehow, without a platform, chucks it downfield and hits George Kittle in stride for the 66-yard touchdown. Kyle Shanahan was on the sideline, and he said it looked like Purdy was throwing a grenade out of a bunker. And, to be able to hit the grenade throw, a deep pass, you've got to have a significant amount of arm talent. So I just think that the entire league, the 49ers included, underscouted this guy. The 49ers got lucky because they were able to pick him up at 262. But from what we've seen out of Purdy, I think it is sustainable based on the skill set that he has and the mental makeup that he has. And the mental makeup is a lot of what I wrote about in that article.
Yeah, I want to get to that article because it was a really good piece in The Athletic. I'd encourage people to go check it out in The Athletic. But I was amazed by that throw just from the standpoint of I believe Brock can make all the throws, even the downfield throws that, the whole is he dink and dunk. I think more than anything, we're finding out that his personality is to attack down the field,
Larry,
maybe
it's so
even
funny how wrong
yeah,
that narrative was. Can I just jump
it
in? I
really
mean,
is funny.
it's like you couldn't be more wrong about
Right.
something than to have called Brock Purdy a dink and dunk quarterback. That's
I know.
the thing. It's not just like they were slightly off with that narrative. It's like literally
The
the polar
opposite.
opposite of the truth. Yes.
Yeah.
So go ahead. Go ahead. I
No,
just
I was
had to
just going to
interject.
say it's amazing that that became the narrative. It's like we truly are in a mode where people are casual fans and casual observers, and they're literally judging the book by the cover. And I get it. He's kind of a narrowed shouldered guy. He's only about 6 feet and change. He doesn't look like a big, broad shouldered powerhouse, Justin Herbert, Josh Allen. He doesn't have that stature. I get it. We all get it. But watching that throw, and in fact, I asked Kittle about it this week. You were standing right next to me. And I said, George, were you surprised that Brock made that throw? Because he didn't step into it, didn't follow through, kind of threw it flat footed. I think it's great that Kyle called it kind of a grenade because it really was like there was no room there for him to step into it. And I was a believer that maybe Brock didn't have the greatest arm strength, but that if he had the ability to step into his throws, he could make any throw downfield. This, though, almost makes his arm look stronger than average because he didn't step into that at all. He threw that thing at least 35 yards down the field, and he led George Kittle away from a defender into an open space by 5-6 feet, where Kittle had to literally kind of go put his arms out and go for it.
Yeah.
It just, to me, it's like if you're in that camp that's questioning the arm strength of Brock Purdy, how can you watch that play and continue that bogus narrative? And it just, I don't know if it's laziness or just we love to judge a book by the cover, but I get it. I understand why people think he's kind of diminutive, but there's nothing really diminutive about his mindset or his skill set.
It started with laziness, then it turned into obstinance, stubbornness, because people just don't like being wrong. And
Right.
now it's just like not everybody who has a show should have a show kind of thing. Just because you can go and start spouting something and people will watch doesn't necessarily mean that you should. And because there's so much just self-preservation. You have to preserve your personal brand. I have to preserve my personal brand. Well, if I said this about Brock Purdy 4 months ago, my personal brand doesn't look very good if I
Right.
go out and I, completely backtrack on it. But to be honest, I think your personal brand would look a whole lot better if you would just say, okay, sorry, I was wrong about this. Every single bit of data is opposite of what I said. Got that one wrong. You can move along. I think it'd be totally fine. But there's a lot of ego nowadays, right? And there's just like digging in, and I'm gonna be right no matter what. And it's like, okay, at what cost do you want to be right? Right? Because right now you're literally looking at Brock Purdy, number one quarterback in the NFL by every efficiency metric, making all the throws he needs to. You have it on tape. You have Hall of Famers like Kurt Warner, saying that what I'm saying is true. Guys that obviously know a lot more than somebody just sitting down on a couch with a camera, and then you're still arguing that. Like, what are we doing here? At this point, and it's 1 + 1 = 3 kind of stuff, Larry. So I think it's a weird phenomenon, but I really wish it would stop because it's stopping us from appreciating the true essence of the game and the story that Brock Purdy's delivering right now. Trent Williams said it best. 49ers hit the Powerball at $2 billion in the lottery with Brock Purdy.
Right.
Trent Williams, I think, knows a whole lot more than the casual observer. He's a 35-year-old future first ballot Hall of Famer.
It always amazes me the audacity that people have just because you've got your hands on the all 22 copy of the film that you're now going to question like Richard Sherman about the film. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
A guy
it's
who played
crazy.
a decade in the NFL and was incredibly cerebral, and you're going to actually try to go toe to toe and debate, guys who roll that film back and forth for a living, like the Baldingers and the Cosels, or guys who just have watched tons of film, like any player who played for any amount of time in the league. And yet there are people that, hey, man, I saw it. I've got a big ego. I've got 5 people in my chat who are telling me I'm the man. And so I don't care if Richard Sherman disagrees with me. I'm just going to double down and fight him publicly. I mean, we're now at an embarrassing moment, I kind of think, where it's like, really? I mean, you're going to battle a guy that watched film for 15 years at Stanford and then in the pros, and it's like telling him he needs to watch it more. I mean, really?
It's what social media has done, right? It's just completely opened up the floodgates of information. Everybody could be their own broadcaster, and we're not used to it. And I think that I think it will naturally kind of correct itself, because I think, I believe in the free marketplace of ideas. So I think at a certain point,
Absolutely.
people will call out the people that, you would think that are spouting some of the nonsense, and those viewerships will go down. But there is a period of correction, and we're probably in the midst of it right now. And during that period of correction, the more outrageous the comment, the more traction it probably gets, right? And unfortunately, that leads to a lot of these narratives just going wild.